This is a mandala that I started a year ago. In this video, we're going to finish coloring the whole thing. Here goes. Welcome to the art project. If you're new here, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below what you think of this video. So in this video, I'm going to give you several tips. Tip number one is to mix 2 or more colors and fade them. So in this particular little piece of flame, I am putting a light coat of yellow. That means when I say light coat, I mean I'm not putting down a lot of pressure and there's still some white paper showing through it. Then I'm going to add on top of that another color, in this case orange, and I'm going to just put a light coat again of the orange on top. I don't want it to be overpowering. I don't want it to be straight up regular orange. I just want it to be kind of a light coat. Then I'm going to, at the very base of it, put a kind of a dark coat. I'm going to start with a light coat and I'm going to build it up of red. And then I'm going to just continue mixing the other 2 colors on top of that to build it up and make it thick as paint. So here I'm going back to the orange and I'm using that to mix together the red and the orange a little bit better, make it fade, adding a little bit more to the part on top of the yellow. Then I'm going to take this yellow and I'm going to start driving it down, like putting a lot of pressure on it so that I can move the pigment and wax around and actually mix it all together. I'm also at this time making the yellow and the tips a little bit darker. So same technique all the way around for all 12 of these little flames. Tip number 2 is add stuff to the corners. If you rewind to the beginning of this video, you'll see that there's nothing actually drawn in the corners, and I drew this set of flames and then I traced it, which I'm going to show you how to do in a little bit, and repeated it in all 4 corners. So this is my addition to the corners, so that the corners are not just plain black and not just basic and plain looking. I wanted to make everything as complex as possible. It's a mandala, and I think the more complex they are, the better they look usually, but that's my opinion. Same technique of mixing colors by layering them one little bit at a time. I'm adding a little white to the tips to make it a little brighter. And then I had to deal with the little moon shapes that I made, and in order to make it complex again and to kind of ramp it up, I did every other one this blue on the edges that fades to white in the middle. Tip number 3, if you're not sure, test out your colors on scratch paper. So what I'm doing here is I'm tracing the moon shape and on some scratch paper, and I'm coloring it in 2 different ways. Right here I'm adding black and then blue and then a lighter blue and then white, and on the other half of it I'm going to start with indigo blue, which is a pretty dark blue but not quite black, and I'm going to try basically from indigo blue to a lighter blue to a lighter blue to white. Inevitably I'm going to end up using both techniques, both sets of colors. The black against the yellow flames that I added to the corners, which is basically just 2 different corners, and then the indigo blue to ultramarine blue to cerulean blue to white on all the other ones. And I did that because I knew I'm going to color in the background black, which again we'll talk about in a minute, and if the tips were black, it would just mix in with or fade in or be low contrast with the black of the Sharpie. So testing it out right here, I like the way it looks, the black on the yellow orange, and so that's what I do here. Also, if you'll notice, this whole video has been sped up, and the real time that it took was over 2 hours of total. No, you know what? I take that back. It was 2 hours of video footage that I had, but I did not record the whole thing. So we're looking at probably 3 or 4 hours of coloring time, and that's just the part that I did for this video. You'll notice at the very start of the video, I already had several parts of the mandala colored in already. So probably, I'm going to say 5 or 6 hours of total time spent coloring it. And of course, that's not the time spent actually doing the mandala. I think if you look at the first video, you'll see that there's a timer in the bottom right hand corner that shows you how much time I actually spent on the mandala itself. So please do not waste your class time talking, playing on your phone, or anything like that. I know you don't want to take this project home for homework, so use your time wisely. Alright, so there it is, fading from black to ultramarine blue to cerulean blue to white, or to a very light blue. Tip number 4, it's never too late to add more. So if you'll notice, I'm putting the ruler in the middle of the paper and I'm drawing a line through the middle of each of the half moons. This is basically where a guideline was before that I erased. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to center these arrows, these new arrows that I'm drawing. I worked for a few minutes to figure out the best way to do an arrow, what the best one would look like, before I finally decided on this one. And I know you're probably thinking, how many different kinds of arrows can there be? There are a lot. They could be done a whole lot of different ways. So I'm using a technique right here to transfer the exact same arrow to every line in the middle of every moon shape. I also use this technique to do the flames. You can see right there where my thumb is, the flames on the tracing paper that were in each corner. I use that same technique to make sure I had the same flames in every corner. And it's pretty simple. You just trace on one side of the tracing paper what you want, you flip it over, you trace it on the other side, and then you have a piece of transfer paper. The graphite will then press down and transfer. It doesn't take much to figure it out. Just test it out for yourself and you'll see what I'm talking about. And I'm just using this to transfer the arrows all the way around. Another thing I should point out is that I do have some things in this picture that are white. I don't normally like leaving any part of the work of art pure white, except highlights and actual lights. So like if I was drawing a picture of a light bulb that was on, you know, that might be white. Or if I was doing a picture of the sun might be white. Or if there's a highlight in somebody's eye, that would be white. But in the case of this, I actually did go against my basic rule, and I left some lightning bolts white. And the reason I did that is because of white lightning. You've heard the phrase white lightning, and so I thought, hey, I'm gonna just leave these white, because if I did them yellow, they would blend in with the flames. And so white seemed to be kind of the way to go. And then when I got to these arrows, I decided the best way to make them pop, the best way to give them the most contrast with the black background, was to leave them white. So there are some exceptions to the rules. Otherwise, I would make sure you color everything in white. Tip number 5 is to go ahead and color the background black. Color all your negative space black. That'll make your picture really, really pop. It'll give it a lot of contrast to the color of the mandala, and it will just make it that much more beautiful. I think so. Anyway, so I then spent probably an hour at least coloring in the back black. If your Sharpie seems to run out and go gray on you, please get you a new Sharpie and make it all nice and black and neat. There it is. I hope you like it. I hope this helps you complete your mandala that we started last year. And here's a little extra bonus.
She's not going to stop me.
This is gross.
Now it's your turn. Go make some art.